Sometimes the best stories in golf aren't found on tour. You'll find them at the back of the range. And here's your host, Ben Adelberg.
And welcome to the Back of the Range Golf Podcast. I am your host, Ben Adelberg. This is a special episode. It's episode 136. So good afternoon. It is Friday, May 1st, probably the first Friday episode we've ever recorded here at the Back of the Range, but I have something special to share with you all. No better time than the present. Before we get to this episode, just let me remind you, we have several great episodes coming up in the next few weeks. USGA champions, All-Americans, perhaps some other surprises. Don't forget we're on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And every episode is available at thebackoftherange.com. Past episodes with guests like Jack Nicklaus, Viktor Hovland, Joe Buck, they're all there on the website, thebackoftherange.com. Another episode that I highly recommend you go back and listen to is episode 97, where I first had the chance to speak with Will Zalatoris. Will won the U.S. Junior in 2014 and then had just an absolutely incredible 2017 season. He was a first-team All-American at Wake Forest. He was on that 2017 Walker Cup team that was so dominant at LACC, and he was also the ACC Player of the Year. He's since turned pro, plays on the Korn Ferry Tour. Earlier this week, when I released the episode with Oklahoma golf coach Ryan Hibble, I mentioned that there was a small fundraiser event to take place in Dallas at Maridoe Golf Club. The tournament not only had some of their high-profile members, but it also featured other professionals and some of the best college players in the country. So I was able to speak with Will this morning about his experience playing in the Maridoe Samaritan fundraiser tournament. We spoke about what he's been doing for the last 6 weeks to keep his game sharp, his experience playing in this event while keeping social distancing policies in place. Will played great. In fact, he shared some information about the final round where he and Viktor Hovland went toe-to-toe yesterday in the next to the last group. They both shoot 65, and Tony Romo's in the gallery doing play-by-play. And not to be overshadowed, there was a hole-in-one with an asterisk. We'll get into that a little bit later. You probably have heard about this, but we discussed it. So just to bring you all a little bit behind the curtain, normally I do a pretty thorough job editing these episodes, but I wanted to get this out right away. I literally got off the phone with Will about 2 hours ago. So this is a very casual chat between Will and I. Glad to have him back on the podcast, someone that I think everyone can really root for once the Korn Ferry Tour gets going again. Let's get started. Will, glad to have you back here at the Back of the Range. How are you?
Doing well, Ben. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. Well, this is fun to reconnect. We haven't spoken in quite some time, but always keeping in touch. And, you know, we actually, thanks to you and a lot of the fine folks down at Maridoe down in Dallas, we have some golf actually to talk about in the coronavirus era. So this is probably one of the first tournaments that's actually been played. So before we talk about your runner-up finish yesterday at Maridoe, tell me a little bit about, I guess, what you've been doing for, the last 6 weeks since really PGA Tour, Korn Ferry Tour, everything kind of shut down in the world of golf.
Yeah, we've actually been pretty lucky in Dallas. All the courses have been technically closed, but, you've been able to go out and walk the golf course just because it's exercise. So
sure.
We've been going out, and for about 4 or 5 weeks, we didn't warm up, but we were still able to bring our own balls and chip and putt on the chipping green. And then we were able to walk on the golf course at both places where I play at Maridoe and Vetri. And, just recently, both places started allowing, you're able to lease your own golf cart for the month.
Nice.
And so Davis, Riley, and I lived together, and so we ended up getting our own golf cart for the month. So, nobody else can ride in it, nobody else can touch it. So we've been basically every day. I mean, it's been a combination of Tony Romo, Mike Baldwin, or Davis Riley will pop in there. Kevin Doherty will pop in there. I know Spieth has played a couple times, and so that same trio has actually been super fun to play with. And I give both of them a couple pops aside, and
I noticed
it's a good battle.
I noticed you were quick just to throw that out there right out in front. How you're giving strokes to Tony Romo, and I have a feeling we'll find another story to share about Mr. Romo. I see where this is going. So, all right. So it sounds like it's basically, no tournaments to play in, no travel, but you're still able to find some way to, play, stay sharp, get a little bit of competition going. So that's good. And, as I've said in just about every episode in the last 6 weeks, I let listeners know when we're recording, and we're recording this on May 1st, the day after the Maridoe Samaritan tournament that was benefiting all the caddies there that are obviously out of work. And let's just, level set real quick. Golf is not the most important profession in the world right now. There are a lot of things that are going on, first responders, people in the healthcare industry that are really struggling, and people are out of work. But how have you adjusted to the point, or how have you adjusted to, your career right now is kind of on hold? And have you had a chance to maybe, sit back and think about what that means for you, how you're approaching it, how you're kind of keeping things in perspective? Have you had that time to maybe just, give some thought to, okay, what's the reality of this?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. It's funny because I remember when it first got announced that we were going to have a stay in place order for the county, and it was just kind of like, well, what does that mean for golf courses? And that was immediately where my head went to.
Yeah.
And then after 3 or 4 days, you start seeing the death tolls go up, and then all of a sudden, there's 50,000 cases. Now there's 100,000 cases. Now we're up to over 600,000 cases or whatever we've got now. And we saw 60,000 deaths is what we crossed yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, like yesterday, we were out grinding and having some fun. And I'm not going to lie, you get the juices flowing a little bit just because, you want to beat, some of the, there's Viktor's playing, Scottie's playing. And it's not about like playing for a trophy. It's different. It's like we were trying to beat each other.
Right.
I know Scottie and I both donated our checks back to the fund. So it's like we're out there more for fun, but at the same time, it's like I want to beat that knucklehead as bad as I possibly can. And it's even funny because I'm sitting here last night with Davis over a couple of cocktails, and I had like a 15-footer on the last hole that had like a good amount of break in it, and I left it short in the heart. And I'm sitting there and I'm just going, God, come on, man. Like, you got to get that thing there. And I'm like, I don't want to say that it doesn't matter, but it's like, I was obviously, the money, obviously it's all going back to the fund, and
right.
It's all, going to the caddies. But I was like, I was laughing at myself. I was like, what we did the last 3 days was really freaking cool.
Yeah.
Because we were out there, took it seriously. A lot of the members were able to come out and watch in, a socially distant fashion.
Right.
And we had some really good players. And I was like, this was really fun. Like, this was really cool. And obviously not to mention raising a bunch of money. I mean, they said that they raised 20,000 for the fund, but I know with Scottie and I giving our checks back, it should be over 30.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. And for people listening that are saying, well, who are all these great players that were in this tournament in that Dallas area? I mean, I don't think anyone was really traveling in. If they were, I can't imagine it must have been from very far away. But
yeah, I mean, it was Viktor Hovland, Scottie Scheffler, me, Davis Riley, Grant Hirschman, Charlie Saxon, Max McGreevy, all Korn Ferry Tour, PGA Tour guys, Austin Eckroat from Oklahoma State, Cooper Dossie from Baylor. I mean, the list goes on and on. The Cootie brothers.
Yeah.
I mean, there's 51 players, and I think it was like 25 or no, it was like I think like 20-ish college players and probably 25 pros, and then a couple of elite amateurs.
Yeah.
Quade, so it was.
Quade Cummins was there. I mean, you got.
Yeah, Quade was there. I mean, it was basically the top college players in the South, or specifically between Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas, were all here. I mean, it was a really cool deal, and it literally this came together in 6 days.
Okay, so
You know,
that was exactly where I wanted to go with this. Before we start talking about some of the
yeah,
things that happened on the course during the event, I mean, it's a 54-hole tournament, stroke play. I kind of want to hear about how it started and then maybe the things that were put in place, because I think you and I talked a little earlier. I think we talked last week when this thing was in place, and you were saying how PGA Tour is somewhat keeping an eye on this just to see, okay, well, like from an operational standpoint, what were maybe the things that worked? What are some things that really are like, wow, that's different. I got to get used to something like that. So, fill me in a little bit how this thing came to be at Maridoe.
yeah. So Albert Huddleston, the owner of Maridoe, is, I mean, when something gets in his head, he does it. I mean, it's basically about a week ago, he comes up to some of us and says, "Hey, I'm going to have a little fundraiser for the Samaritan Fund." And originally it was just going to be within the membership. And, everybody puts up $250 and we'll play 3 rounds of golf. And, there's a lot of great players that are at Maridoe that are members. And you kind of have to be, just given how hard the golf course is.
Yeah.
And within 48 hours, it went from basically probably 20-ish players to there's going to be 81 players, 3 flights. The top college players are playing. Malcolm Holland and Veritex Bank are going to put up some money. I know B.A. Klein put up a little bit of money, and Albert put up some money to put a purse together. And the money, half the money goes to the Samaritan Fund, and half the money would be in the purse for the professionals. And I remember when he told me that, and I just go, "What?" I mean, this was just going to be a casual, nonchalant, I'll go out, play a little golf, play for a little coin, whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, okay, we got a PGA Tour winner in the field, possibly a 3-time major winner in the field. This is like, this is awesome.
Yeah.
This is great. And then, basically in terms of like how we all played was, we had a walking scorer in our group, which is actually one of the caddies, or typically one of the caddies. Some of the members volunteered, and they had a rake. And so they raked all of our bunkers as we played.
Okay.
And then the golf course has had a PVC pipe, like a cylinder put around the flagstick in the hole.
Okay. So kind of like the pool noodle thing. What I think it's similar.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so it's actually, and I've played with both the PVC pipe and the pool noodle. I thought the PVC pipe was a million times better, but
okay.
We left all the flag sticks in. If Maridoe is typically probably 16 out of the 18 holes are very open in terms of where the wind is coming through. There's not a lot of trees unless you're on basically the one corner of the property on 16 and 17, or for the tournament routing. But so if the flagstick, we had one day where the winds were blowing 35 miles an hour. I mean, it was crazy. It was Bahamas level for us.
I saw that. Yeah, it was the second day, right? Second day of the tournament.
Yeah, second day. And the first day was still pretty windy, but the second day was Bahamas level wind. Like that was definitely up there in terms of our first event of the season for the Korn Ferry Tour. Yeah. But with the wind whipping around and the flagsticks would kind of lean a little bit, the caddies were allowed to take the rake and basically hook it around the flagstick and pull it to where the flag would be in the middle of the hole, if somebody was putting. Because, it's whipping so hard that someone who's putting straight into the wind, I mean, the flagstick, damn near is touching the cup.
Yeah.
So they were able to kind of hook the flagstick around and hold it in place. And so that was really the only weird thing that we did the whole week. And I thought it was incredible. And not to mention yesterday, Albert said that he wants to do it again in a couple weeks.
Oh my gosh.
So, yeah. So, and I know there's a lot of top players that I know of that have heard about it. And I've got a couple text messages already being like, "Hey, do you think I could get in if we do it again?"
You're gonna have to this thing might need a qualifier.
Oh, I know. So that's the thing about Mr. Huddleston is he loves competition and he wants all the top events that he can possibly get. I know he's been tinkering with some ideas in terms of, maybe a junior event or, basically if there's any competition that he deems to be high level enough to be at Maridoe, he wants it there. And so that's the part where, that's why all the guys Scottie comes and plays, and that's why you got 15 guys that are on the Korn Ferry tour that come and play in it. It's just because we know how good of a test it is.
It's really interesting as you're talking about this, and obviously, these guys would be playing out on PGA Tour events, and you'd be playing, Korn Ferry events, and the college players would be, playing, high-level amateur stuff to get them ready for the USAM and before they launch their pro careers. But it sounds to me that this is something where it's not about the money. It's about the competition. It's about being in a comfortable place and just boys being boys and just throwing some money in a pot and say, let's go get after it. I mean, is this something that, even when things get more back to normal, I'm guessing this is something you want to see in the future?
Yeah, and I'll be very honest that originally when the idea went from being within the membership to being an entire, basically a very good field full of college and regular players or professional players, I was a little thrown off at first. I was almost a little hesitant. I was like, are we ready for this? Like, I don't know if this is, I just don't want my golf course to get shut down.
Right.
Like, trust me, I want the competition, but I was like, I don't know if we're ready for this. And then they put in really strict guidelines for social distancing. If anybody didn't adhere, they were asked to leave. Your temperature was checked when you drove in the gates. They got asked the same 3 questions every day. Have you traveled outside the United States? Do you have any of the symptoms? And have you, I can't remember what the third one was, but it was basically like, it was run perfectly. Like, golf is literally the one sport where you're able to go out and play and get away with, you can still adhere to social distancing guidelines and, not having rakes. Well, guess what? 100 years ago, they didn't have rakes and bunkers.
Yeah.
So by the 4th day, if you hit one in a bunker, it's a hazard. I mean, that's why to me, I think I'm excited. After playing this week, I basically confirmed in my mind, okay, we're going back June 8th. Like, we're ready to go. And honestly, we could probably go back sooner, but,
Yeah.
but still, you got to give we haven't traveled yet. We haven't gotten in hotels yet. So.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me when I think about, getting back, I mean, obviously we all want to get back as quickly as possible. It's just when you look at what you guys did, where really everyone's just kind of driving, sleeping in their own bed or staying at a hotel, I can't imagine there was too many flights being made to catch this tournament, and you can control a lot of it. Yeah, I don't know what it's going to look like for a PGA Tour event. I mean, because there's just hundreds of people that need to be in place for those things to go off.
And
that's the only thing that I worry about, that because what happens if someone in a TV truck gets something, and just something like that you're like, okay, well, what do we do? So
and that's what I had this conversation with Tony the other day talking about football, where he said, football, you can get away with it, where you test everybody once a week. You can control them in training camp by, say, instead of the Cowboys going to Oxnard, they basically stay up at the Star and everyone stays at the Renaissance.
Right.
And it's like nobody in or out. But the difference is, obviously they want to see their families. But, you got to test them every week. And if one guy gets sick on one team and they played against another team, now you got to test both teams to see if anybody's sick. So he said he thinks that football will, be okay and probably start on time. But, he just said that, you just got to be cautious. And so that's why, I think at first when we did this event, I hate saying it, but I was a little bit of I guess you could say I was a little bit of a hater.
Yeah.
But after how it was run and how perfect Mark Welgus and the whole staff and Allison Morris and everyone put it together, and I mean, it was flawless. I mean, I didn't think you could have 81 players being spread out, playing golf, having walking scores. I didn't think it was physically possible without breaking some rules, and it was literally run perfect.
So did you so no scorecards? You had the walking score take care of everything?
Well, we actually had our own scorecard. We didn't even trade scorecards.
Okay, so you just kept it just to keep things, keep a record, but the official score was done by the walking score.
Correct. So when we got in there, I just took my scorecard and confirmed it with,
Right.
yeah. So it was
Interesting.
yeah. So in reality, I probably shot about 11 over, and
Nice.
yeah.
All right. Well, so you mentioned we can't let your buddy Romo off the hook here. You just mentioned him. Mentioned a little bit of football. I know everyone loves listening to him. This transition he's made out of football to the booth has been incredible. But he's a competitive amateur golfer, scratch golfer. I don't need to read his scores off and do that to him. I mean, I don't need to be that guy, but that doesn't hurt when you want to get some press and some notoriety for a charity tournament to have Tony Romo rolling around that place. You played the first 2 days with him. You've played numerous rounds of golf with him. I know he's a friend, and you consistently play games with him. Give me a little bit about how he is on the golf course, especially like in a tournament like this. Does he get maybe a little too amped up for it to the detriment of his to his score, or what is his approach to these things? Where this is not his, profession. This is not football. So how does he perform in these environments?
Well, we play a typical money game pretty much. Lately it feels like it's been every day.
$5 Nassau's, right?
Yeah, right. Of course. Got to keep everything civil. We're all friends here.
There you go.
But he, I mean, the first day he took it pretty seriously, and even Mike and I were kind of laughing, and we were like, man, we haven't seen this guy before. Normally it's jokester Tony, and maybe a little talking some trash, and you can putt that, that's not good, or Baldy hits a chip to 35 feet. Great chip, man. Awesome. I mean, that's just typical Tony. But he took it super seriously the first day, and then the second day it was blowing 35 miles an hour, and he was like, okay, we're out here having fun now. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. But yeah, I mean, the thing with him is it's like he is a fantastic player, and he really is. Like, I've seen him shoot 68, 69s out at Maridoe. The thing is, it's like you get it on a day where it's tough and the rough's up a little bit and the greens are rolling just a little bit faster with tuck pins. That's just where, typically when we play, I give him 2.5 or 3 aside. Originally, I mean, it was closer to 2. But I've gone on a little tear the last couple of weeks, and I had to agree to giving him 3. But I think for him, it's just like he's asking all the right questions. Now it's in terms he's got to apply it, and he loves the game. He treats it like a job, honestly. I mean, he's out there every single day. He's watching swing videos on his phone of Ben Hogan and Tiger 2000 while we're out playing.
Oh, God.
I mean, he's such a golf
dork
junkie. Oh yeah, he's a dork, but he's such a junkie that it's like, if I explain how to hit a draw 4 different ways, he's going to try to hit it all 4 ways. Like, that's how much he loves it. And so I think for him, it's like he's asking all the right questions and the work ethic is there. Now I think he's at a point where he's got such a deep understanding. He really does have a deep understanding of the golf swing. I think now he just needs to learn how to play with it. The reality is, when it's blowing 35 miles an hour, I don't think you're really thinking about, swing playing.
No.
And, it's just like Mike Tyson. Everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face.
I love that quote. That's one of my
favorite
quotes
best
of all time.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically what Maridoe felt like when it's blowing 35 miles an hour. I mean, I'm hitting drivers basically 15 feet off the ground and trying to cut them 30 yards back into a right to left wind just so I can, keep it in the fairway. And, that's where it's like, your thought of getting into your left glute on the downswing, that just goes out the window.
Yeah.
Like,
you're just kind of like, all right, let me manufacture something that keeps me on the planet and let's just get it to the house.
Yeah. And I think that's what, I when we talked about it too, I mean, that's why I said he's asking all the right questions. And I really do believe this. I mean, this is not like a PR move on, on behalf of a buddy. Like, I really do think that someday he will make a cut. He loves it so much and he puts so much effort in. And I know that, love and effort doesn't really spell, great career in
Right.
golf, but I just know that he's got enough people around him that are so good that, care about him as a person, as a player, that he's gonna make a cut one day. And so that's why it's like, the last 3 days, I mean, 7,900 yards, 150 slopes, 77.6 rating. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, blowing 35 miles an hour. I mean, that basically means a zero handicap is going to go out and shoot 80 all 3 rounds.
Well, that's well, you guys tore it up yesterday. Excuse me, you guys tore it up yesterday. You told me earlier that so the final group was Scheffler, who ends up winning by 1 over you, and then Travis Vick, I believe sophomore from Texas.
Yeah.
And then your roommate Davis Riley, and then in the penultimate group, it's Viktor Hovland, another former guest here, and then Taylor Moore. But you had Romo like doing color commentary for you in the final group. I mean, what was going on there?
So we got to the 12th hole, which is our original 18. They rerouted the golf course for the tournament. And I look over to my left, and he's over there with Mike, and they're sitting there having a couple cocktails watching me play. And I'd knock it on in 2, have like a 40-footer, and it was a tough 2-putt. I ended up 3-putting it. And so then we finally get to 13, and Javi and I started trading birdies back and forth. And we'd kind of been doing that earlier in the day. We both birdied the same 3 holes on the front. I would knock one close, tap it in. He'd make one, longer one. Then he would knock one in close, and I'd make a longer one. And it was just kind of going back and forth. And, we started getting some of the members coming out watching. And I made like a 15-footer on 13. He makes a 10-footer. He knocks one to 3 feet on a 220-yard par 3. I hit mine to 15. We both make birdie. And I could tell Tony's getting super jacked up about it because now he's going up there and kind of acting like a spotter. And so 15 is just a beast of a hole. I mean, it's like 5'10", dog leg left, fairway runs left to right, and you've got water basically in every single direction. I mean, it's a really good golf hole. And Javi kind of pulled one over left, but it stayed up, but he had some tree issues. And Tony's over there, and he's like, all right, if he's a smart player, he'll blow it over the back of the green, and he'll have an easy chip. But, he can't, if he puts in the front bunker, he's not making up and down. And I'm like, I'd already knocked mine on. And I couldn't tell if it was 6 feet or 35 feet. Unfortunately, it was 35 feet. He was like, dude, that shot was great. And then he goes over to Josh Gregory, and he's like showing like a video of me, and he's like trying to figure out something for his own game.
Oh,
and it's,
God.
And then I get up on the green, and Javi, as Tony called it, shocker, he blows it over the backside of the green, which was the perfect play. And he was like, all right, this is a brutal chip. I mean, it's basically 65 feet, and it's downhill the entire way. And then 6 feet past the hole is a false front. And he looks sick, and he chips, and he goes, oh, this is your ball game, buddy. This is your ball game. And I'm like, this is incredible. Like, he's literally on the green with us. There's like 40, 50 people or 40, 50 members just out, walking around with their family and, watching Scottie's group, watching our group. And I'm like, I love that he cares so much.
Right.
Like it was honestly, I took it as a compliment. I thought it was hilarious just how much he was out there.
Yeah.
Just like, sitting there talking to me, whatever. And I'm like, oh my God.
It's like, get away from, I mean, I love it, but get away from me.
It's like, go stand over there. Let me go get you another cocktail or something. Just stay over there.
That's
but
awesome.
He's the best, man. I mean, he's been so good to me throughout my career. And I could tell, yesterday he was like, he sent me a text. He's like, dude, I haven't watched anybody play golf since my dad 10 years ago. And so I was like, well,
wow,
looks like I got a pretty good friend there.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow, that's awesome. So you mentioned the whole rerouting, and I got to ask, because, like, look, I have nothing against the guy. I mean, he seems to be a good guy. He seems to be a good player. He's had some mild success, but if Jordan Spieth's golf ball doesn't stay in the hole, how do you how do you count it as a hole in one? And I get it. There's a PVC pipe in there, or there's a pool noodle, and I get it. And I don't have nothing against Spieth. I'd be saying the same thing if it was Tiger or Phil or Jack or you or anyone. But if the ball doesn't stay in the hole, isn't it kind of hard to call it a hole in one? Explain to me what I'm missing here.
I'll tell you right now, and I didn't ask Tony about this yesterday. If Tony and Spieth were playing their usual game, Tony was 100% counting that ball in the water. There is no questions asked that Tony was counting that in the water. That being said, Spieth did do the proper thing and buy a bunch of drinks, and I guess we did count it. But I know Tony well enough that there's no way in hell that he was going to let this thing slide and be like, oh, that would have stayed in, whatever. So I mean, that he's so ultra competitive. But yeah, I mean, basically I was on the other side of the lake, but we heard all the screaming, and apparently his ball flew in the hole, and the PVC pipe literally went up the flag stick and went halfway up the flag, and then the ball went shooting off over into the water. And we heard a big old scream, and so I assumed that someone made a one, which honestly is a ridiculous golf shot, even though it's 110 yards.
Right.
I'm bailing out from 110 yards if it shows you how hard that shot is. And, Javi hit one yesterday to 10 feet just on the fringe, and it's like Freddie at Augusta, number 12. It's like, how in the hell does that ball stay up?
Right.
And so if he goes another 6 inches, the ball's in the water. So, we were all laughing, and Spieth I know Spieth bought drinks yesterday. So trust me, I'm shocked that Tony let that count.
Okay.
Long story short.
Yeah. It's been all over, social media, and I know he's talked about it. He did a little, he's mentioned it. And as I said, I don't want to get on anyone's bad side here. I'm just saying that it's kind of part of that whole concept of, it's actually in the name, hole, hole in. I mean, it's there. It's not, gosh, I'd love to be there to see that happen with Romo and be like, yeah, go take your drop.
Yeah. I'm telling you right now, I can't believe, I don't think there's any way in hell that Tony would pay that out.
That's fantastic. Well, he did the right thing. Like you said, he bought drinks. What was the social aspect of it? Like, you guys really couldn't hang out afterwards at all. I think I see some of the rules down here in South Florida. We're getting ready to start golf pretty soon, and they're like, basically it's like, don't show up too early. You can't just bang balls on the range for an hour. Go play.
Exactly.
Go play. Keep your distance, and when you're done, get the hell out of there and don't hang around with people. Is that basically what it's like?
Yeah, they told us not to. Get there more than 45 minutes before our tee time. And basically when you got done, they did a really good job of policing it. Like, if there were kind of groups gathering, they'd kind of tell them to, hey, can you guys maybe go over here? You can still talk and, just keep your distance, but we just don't want, groups turning into one giant group, and now all of a sudden you got 50 people on a patio. So, basically it was kind of like whoever wanted to hang out with anybody just kind of spread out in their own corners and were separated. And so we had, when people were out following us, everybody, that was the part that's why I said, it can be done.
Right.
Was, having a good group of people following us, but everybody was, a mother and father with their, 2 kids, they're over here, and they're way away from the 4 guys that are drinking beer, and they're, separated from each other. But so that's why it was like, I remember sitting there on basically 15 and seeing the crew that was following us, and I was like, this is honestly incredible. Like, I did not think that people could do this. So, it was, it gave me a lot of hope. That's for sure.
That's awesome.
Because I think today actually is the first day where things are kind of going back to normal for the golf courses in Texas. So,
no, that's awesome. You mentioned, before I forget, you mentioned a lot of these collegiate players that were in the tournament, whether it's, Quade Cummins from Oklahoma or, Cooper Dawsey at Baylor. and Eck rode over at Oklahoma State. And, a lot of other players were in the field too. Have you had a chance maybe ask them what their plans are? Because a lot of them that are seniors have opportunities to go back to school. And, I'm not sure if you had a chance to speak with any of them. I know that, your experience at Wake Forest is something you treasure to this day. I'm just curious if you've had any opportunity to say, hey, what are you thinking? And has that come about?
Yeah, I haven't really talked to, a lot of those guys about it, but I know a lot of people, the friends that I have, not specifically that were playing in this tournament, they're planning on going back to schools basically because there's no Q school this fall. So if you turn pro, you're basically just going doing Monday qualifiers. And, if you don't, you might as well go ahead and go back to school, maybe get a master's degree in something or whatever, finish up in the spring, and then go out, maybe play Canada or Latin, or maybe do some Mondays and then go to Q school in the fall of 2021, because there's just real no benefit to turning pro now. I mean, it's really a tough situation for those guys. And honestly, it's a blessing that the NCAA is letting them go back.
Oh, yeah.
Because if it didn't go back, honestly, I would feel for them. I mean, my situation was very different in the fact that basically Q school was going to be my backup. I mean, I had 10 months to get my card on one of the tours. Excuse me. And so, I feel for the guys, but at the same time, there's going to be a lot of really good college golf being played this year.
Gosh.
I mean, it's going to be really fun to watch. And the fact that we had 15-ish guys that are on the Korn Ferry or PGA Tour that are playing in this past event, and there's college kids that are in the mix, to win this tournament. I mean, it's just like, holy cow. I mean, college golf is going to be playing at a really high level this upcoming year.
Can you imagine what it would have been like just to get, and my college experience is nothing like what you had, but can you even think back if you were in their shoes, like if you were able to get one more year of college?
Oh my God, that would be.
and you're, you're 24, I think.
23.
23. Okay. And I'm 43, and I'm just thinking back like, oh my God, if someone said to me, all right, listen, yeah, just do it again. One more year. Why not? Go Van Wilder. Who gives a shit? Just, play some more golf, have some fun. It's fine. I'd be like, really? Can you? And you're barely out of it.
Oh man, I actually love that movie, Van Wilder. It's one of my favorite movies.
Of course.
Yeah, go take a victory lap, and not to mention play some really high quality golf. Yeah, I mean, I.
And then actually, and you're as a Walker Cupper. I mean, you played in 2017 at LACC. All those guys that thought that it was not going to be in the cards for them, now are thinking that. I'm guessing
now it is.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like like guy like John Augenstein, who played once and was thinking, okay, that's probably it. He's probably going to turn pro. Well, now he has a chance. You look at guys like Sahith Theegala. You look at. I'm just thinking, maybe like a Cooper Dawsey, who really probably wasn't on the short list to make it last year, but now he's got to be on the short list to make it in 2021. So it opens up so many incredible opportunities.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I hate saying that, obviously the virus is a very tragic thing.
Of course.
But
you're
it's almost, it's almost as weird as it sounds for golfers, because they get more time to develop their craft. They get more time to ask questions, to improve. They get more time to possibly, like you said, play in a Walker Cup, which is to this day, I think is one of the coolest experiences of my life. And I know that obviously, I left a semester early, but it's a completely different situation. And, these guys, looking at it from a professional perspective, I would tell them, for one, stay if you can, because in this situation, given how things are going to fall, because obviously, like you said, there's another chance to make a Walker Cup. There's another year to work on your craft. And if you go ahead and turn pro, you're going to be stuck playing Mondays and relying on sponsors exemptions that, quite frankly, are probably going to, more chances are probably going to be given to guys that have either locked up their Korn Ferry or their PGA Tour card from the Korn Ferry Tour already, and they haven't gotten a Battlefield promotion yet, now that our season's, a year and a half long, or they're going to be given to guys that don't have the best of status, and, they're in the 50 to 200-ish category of players, and they'll be given those spots out. So, not to mention on a, sponsor side, obviously the market's not doing great.
Of course.
It's trying to come back. But, when I turned pro, I was at an all-time high, or the, market then was at an all-time high, and it only went higher. So that's where, for these guys, I know that it's like, well, what does the market have to do with golf? It's like, well, marketing budgets are kind of determined on how your company does. So that's why for me, it's like, and I'm starting to learn all this, is, I was very fortunate when I did turn pro to take advantage of the economic climate, and if guys that are turning pro now, a lot of them are only going to be getting manufacturing contracts or golf, manufacturer contracts. So that's why I think giving it another year and a half and, I guess, take a victory lap or, get it your masters, that's where I think these guys are actually very fortunate, because it's almost like this is your only path. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to kind of, so basically what you're just, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what you're kind of saying is when you turned pro, you had more sponsorship opportunities, manufacturer opportunities to kind of give you a financial cushion to get your career started, where you weren't necessarily hurting for finding money for travel expenses, entry fees, different things like that, living expenses, of course. And now you're seeing that these kids, if they come out now, like I'm even thinking about Romo. If I'm a Korn Ferry Tour event, I'm going to give a sponsor's exemption to Tony Romo over maybe some guy, some 19-year-old or 20-year-old kid that's coming out of college that really, unless you're following college golf very carefully, nobody knows, because Romo's going to give them more of a bang for their buck. He will get people out on the golf course. He will get media attention. So yeah, it makes sense. Stay in school and just see if things will recover, because without that financial backing of sponsors and equipment companies, it's a tough road.
Yeah, and that's where, and I've been talking to some friends about it where, they're asking, to pick my brain, and, a lot of them laugh because I say stay, and it's like, well, I left early, and then I've got to break down the completely different situations that we're in right now. And so that's why, when the kids are going to be turning pro, really in the next, if there are any guys that turn pro in the next year, they're really only going to be having manufacturing contracts. And if there's a clothing company that's, involved with that company, like a Titleist or FootJoy, that's really all that they're going to be doing. It's a lot of the corporate sponsorships are going to be put on hold for a little while.
Yeah.
So that's why, and that's a lot of that stuff when you turn pro early, unless you're a guy, that's won everything coming out of the gate or coming out of college, they're not, life-changing deals. Of course, you hear the old adage, it's not your first contract that's the life-changing one, it's the second one. And so that's why, that's part of the reason why I would try to tell everybody that I could that's, thinking of either turning pro or going back to school. It's like, just go back to school. And in this situation, you can take advantage of it in such a perfect way of having another year, maybe get your master's, go knock out some, go win a couple times, or go, play against some really high level competition in college, and hopefully make a Walker Cup and have the best experience of your golfing life up to that point.
I'm just thinking about the chicks. I mean, I'm just going to be really honest. I totally agree with you about the college piece. I mean, as a working stiff in his 40s, if someone tells me I get to go back to college for a year, sign me up, and I'd be all in for that. I mean, get out of here. So before I let you go, you mentioned you got your roommate Davis Riley, and you guys are trying to stay sharp for for when golf returns, for when your professional lives get back to somewhat normality. One of the interesting things that I've seen on social media is everyone seems to have a putting net or putting mat, and everyone's got a hitting net, and everyone's doing whatever the hell they can do to stay sharp.
Right.
Have you got on this bandwagon? Because everyone's got their different setup. I know Rory has his own damn gym, and he's got tennis courts, and I know that's a different level than all of us are on. But what are you doing? What is your setup that you guys do? You have anything?
Yeah, I mean, not all of us are blessed to have TrackMan simulators in our houses, and
I know.
$100,000 plus gyms in our houses either. But so Davis and I reconfigured the couch in our living room / kitchen area, and we've got a jumbo XL golf net with a mat, and that's basically been our driving range for the last 6 weeks. And we've got a 36-foot putting mat laying down on the ground that goes the entire lengthwise of our apartment. And I've got all of my kettlebells and medicine balls. They're all basically in our living room right now. So basically we have been practicing, sleeping, having nightly beverages, watching maybe a comedian or two, all literally within about a 250 square foot space. So we've been working out, being lazy, and practicing all in the same spot.
Perfect.
But we've had a couple of late night 12:30 pull out the TrackMan, try to hit our numbers over a couple beverages and throw some currency on it. God. I'm sure our downstairs neighbors can't stand us, but
I was just about to ask, like, okay, is this apartment out in the woods somewhere, or are you getting evicted tomorrow?
No, I mean, they haven't graced us with their presence yet, but I'm sure it'll happen at some point. But I think driving ranges might be opening in the next couple of days down here in Dallas, so we may slide by with a couple too many 1 a.m. Hit your number contests on TrackMan and not getting in trouble for it.
All right. Well, before you tear down this facility, definitely send me a picture of it so I can post it, because I think I need to. This is something we need to see. Well, listen, I appreciate you kind of giving me and listeners kind of a recap of this Maridoe event. I think it's fantastic that a lot of this money was raised for the caddies. I think it's just very interesting to see what golf looks like now and what it can be with a few measures taken into place. Stay healthy and stay sharp, and definitely let me know when that next Maridoe event happens. And before I let you go, when do you think is your next event you are going to play in? Not necessarily the date, but like what is your plan right now? Do you have one?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll probably, if Maridoe does that event again, that'll be my next one. But for Korn Ferry Tour, June 8th, down at TPC Sawgrass and on the Dye Valley course,
okay,
is probably going to be our first one back. I mean, I'm fairly confident that that's going to be our first one. I don't think they're going to push it back anymore.
Okay, well, get ready for that one, and protect that security deposit for the apartment, and do your best, and we'll catch up again soon. I appreciate it, Will.
Always, Ben. Thanks, brother.
And there you have it. Special thanks to Will Zalatoris for joining me this morning on this special Friday episode here at the Back of the Range. Don't forget, we'll have more episodes coming up in the next several weeks. Follow along on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, and every episode is available at thebackoftherange.com. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you again next time here at the Back of the Range.